Sonke Gender Justice this week held a panel discussion and community dialogue to explore the relationship between gender and water in the context of Cape Town's drought. Now, it included 100 community members, mainly women from diverse backgrounds and water crisis and gender experts, to foster discussion around the impact of the lack of access to water on women. Nabila Mia is the Policy and Research Fellow at Sonke Gender Justice. We chat to her now on the line from Cape Town. Good afternoon, Nabila, and welcome to the SABC News Desk.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Nabila, there is a unique gendered component to this crisis. Tell us how it all comes into play and how young girls and women are impacted by a water crisis like this in terms of sanitation, education and health.
So we know that gender impacts on all areas of life, and women and men relate to water differently. Firstly, women are more often than not the users, providers and managers of water in households, especially in rural households. So, for example, what happens is that they end up bearing the higher duty of the burden of care in terms of collecting water, using the water for cooking, and so forth and so forth. So in instances where, for example, women have to go and collect water where it's not coming out of their taps, our research has shown that this has a negative impact on a number of aspects of their lives. One example, a few examples that I can think of is in relation to female education, where girls have to go and fetch water away from their houses. They end up being late for school or not going to school at all because they have to carry water home. Another impact is there's an increased risk to violence. We know from our research that in instances where women do not have access to proper sanitation, such as toilets, they have to walk to communal toilets or public spaces. Nighttime trips often put them at increased risk of physical attack and sexual violence. We saw an example of this in March 2016 in the case of teenager Sinopolo Mafevuka, whose body was found inside a communal toilet in Kailicha. And we think that these risks can be extended to instances where women and girls must fetch water.
Nabila, so you've engaged with community members, city officials, so on during the week. What are some of the outcomes of yesterday's meeting and what is the way forward?
So what we had was a very powerful session with a panel discussion at the beginning with city officials, Department of Health officials, Chapter 9 institutions as well as research institutions, where information was fed to the community. And then the second half of our program was an opportunity for community dialogue, where community was given and it was mainly made up of women. They were given a space to feedback recommendations, which Sonke will collect to go to provide to the city. And a few big ticket items that come from that is that there needs to be greater access to information. Often what's happening related to this water crisis, people don't have enough information. They don't know why taps are being turned off, and there are certain areas in Cape Town where taps where they are without water, and they actually think that it's day zero already because they don't have information. So there's the big need for information to be provided and gender-sensitive information to be provided. Another instance is that any water emergency plans that are being put in place needs to take gender into account. The safety of women and children especially need to be taken into account when planning, when creating this emergency plan. Another instance is that people just there needs to be women's voices heard when devising these emergency plans. There seems to be a lack thereof, which is what prompted our community dialogue, that there seems to be a lack of women's voices in what's going on in relation to this water crisis.
Nabila Mia, thank you for your time on the SABC News Desk. Joining us there on the line from the Mother City, she's the Policy and Research Fellow at rights group Sonke Gender Justice. Time to take a short break. Your weather details after this.